In the first two installments, we focused more on Mikra Megillah, part 1 and part 2. And now, this last installment, I want to focus on the last three mitzvot of Purim, which is mitzvot Matanot le'evyonim, Seudah Purim, and Mishloach Manot. Okay? So first, mitzvah Matanot le'evyonim. In the Megillah, the lashon is Matanot le'evyonim. Matanot is plural, and evyonim, meaning poor people, is plural. And therefore, the halacha is that you have to find two poor people to be mekayim this mitzvah. And at times, it could be that it's difficult. You know, depending on what shul you daven in some shuls, you know, there's so many poor people collecting that they're disturbing the entire davening, etc. But there are other shuls that they don't have any poor people that are collecting. You have to kind of like hire two poor people to collect. Yeah, so but the din is you have to give matanot le'evyonim. Now, what is the minimum matanot? That's very hard to say. I would say it should be enough to be able to buy some food. I'm just guessing that you should say, let's say, 5 shekel minimum to give each of the evyonim. I remember years in yeshiva where there weren't evyonim that came during Mikra Megillah, and I remember giving out to Israeli friends 5 shekel here, 5 shekel there, because they were going to be going home and going through the Tachar Merkazit, and to find evyonim there and able to give it to be mekayim the mitzvah. Okay, the Magen Avraham says that yitochen, he's not kovea, but he says yitochen, it could be that you have to give the evyonim, that they should receive it on Purim, and not receive it before Purim, and not to receive it after Purim. This understanding would be that the nature of Matanot evyonim would be to misamech evyonim on the day, maybe parallel to the din of chagim in the Torah, misamachta b'chagecha, where you're supposed to also be misamech other people, evyonim, with food, and that's part of the kiyum of your simcha, is to make sure that you be misamech other people. Now, on this day of Purim, there's another minhag that's not Matanot le'evyonim, and you shouldn't be confused with the two, and that's the minhag of machzit hashekel. Okay, and the minhag of machzit hashekel harkens back to the parsha that we just read this Shabbos of shkalim, and it's a minhag to give a matbeya, a coin that says on it half. Okay, $50 if you live in America or in Australia. It could be a half pound if you live in England. Any coin that says it on half, and the minhag also is to give 3 because it's mentioned 3 times. That's the minhag. So on a practical level, in yeshiva, as an example, you know, you come in, the time that it's normally given is by mincha time on Tanit Esther. Okay, according to the Maharil, it's then, according to the Magen Avraham, it's dafka the mincha right before Kriyas Megillah, and nafkamina, it might be a situation of a Purim Mishloach, but whatever, you come in and you see this tray on the bima or somewhere in the Beit Knesset. So what you're supposed to do is take out paper cash or whatever you have, look into the tray, try to find 3 coins that say on it half. In Israel, those that are zocha to live in Israel, this is one of the little perks of living in Israel, that it's mamish machzit hashekel written on the coin. It says machzit hashekel. You lift up those 3 before you give your money in, and you take whatever the change, you know, in value, whatever money you want to give, and then you put your paper money down, and then you say zeichel machzit hashekel, and then you put it into the basket. That's the proper way of being mekayim machzit hashekel. Now, Sfaradim are noheg that it's not a coin that says half, but rather the value of half a shekel of silver from the time of the Torah, which is calculated according to most to be 9.6 grams of silver, and that will change on the basis of the silver market all over the world. On the radio in Israel, they always announce exactly how much machzit hashekel is for Sfaradim. Okay, that's a din of Matanot le'evyonim. Sometimes people ask, can I use my Ma'aseh Ksafim for Matanot le'evyonim? Can I use that? And the answer is better not. In other words, better that the first couple of amount of money that you give it to Aniyim should have nothing to do with your minhag of Ma'aseh Ksafim. just to give it as a pure gift. If you wanted to add on, obviously you could always add on from your Maaseh Ksafim. Next we get to the inyan of Seudah Purim. Okay, the Iker Seudah is in the day. Let me repeat that. The Iker Seudah is in the day. And some people are confused sometimes because in yeshiva, it's such a big deal. The Seudah at night is such an incredibly big deal, and it really is. But the Iker Seudah is in the day. The Ramah says that there's a minhag, sheyarbeh gam b'layla k'tzat, a little bit at night, to be marbe k'tzat. Now, this is nafkamina, not just to make sure that you kovei Seudah in the day, and that should be, it should be, a model to be the Iker, the main Seudah as far as the food, etc. But it also is important for the highlight for some people, the mitzvah of chayev inish lebesume bepuraya. A person is obligated to become inebriated on Purim, adelo yada. And that is a din in the Seudah. So those people that are zrizim makdimim, and they start to practice this mitzvah at night, to the point that they're not capable of doing in the day, it's ironic. In other words, they're being mavata the mitzvah by being zrizim makdimim to do it a little bit before. There's no kiyum of chayev inish lebesume at night at all. There's no kiyum of drinking at night. It's only in the Seudah. I'm not going to go into the many, many different shitot of chayev inish lebesume, what does adelo yada mean, etc. I'll just tell you straight, the Ramah paskins that a person should drink yoter mihergelo, more than he normally drinks. So if at a Shabbos table you'll drink, let's say, a glass of wine, so you're supposed to drink a little bit more than a glass of wine. And that's a kiyum according to the Ramah. The Rambam says that a person should be yoshen mitoch shikruto, that he should feel tired by the fact that he drank, and to fall asleep. Then some real machmirim want to be machmir to fall asleep at the Seudah. And that's an interesting chakira, because when you say chayev inish lebesume puraya, and you say, what is adelo yada? Adelo yada is that a person should fall asleep mitoch shikruto. I personally believe that all that is a sheer of how intoxicated you have to be, to the point that you're going to fall asleep because of your drinking, meaning to say you could drink a bit, feel a little bit tired, say Birkat Hamazon, and then go to bed right afterwards, and you're makayim because you fell asleep, mitoch shakruto. But each person is, makayim the mitzvah according to the way he normally, wants to do it. Okay? That's the inyan of Seudah Purim. And now I come to the last mitzvah, and that's the mitzvah of Mishloach Manot ish lere'ehu. Now here, the Lashon in the Megillah is Mishloach Manot, plural, ish lere'ehu, and that's singular. And therefore the mitzvah really is to give to one person, to one friend. One package, one manot, two foods in one package. Poskim say that it should be something that's edible immediately. You can't give him a raw steak for Mishloach Manot. You wouldn't be able to be mekayim in such a way. Some people are mahadir to say, give two different brachot, but meikar din, it doesn't really have to be two different brachot. There are some that say that because it says Mishloach Manot, that it's better to make a shliach to deliver it to your friend, because it says Mishloach. That's not meikar din, but some people try to be mahadir that it should be al dei shliach. Another important din that a lot of times people overlook is that it has to be ro'oi le'mishaleach or shaleach v'ro'oi le'makabel. It has to be fitting for the person sending and also fitting for the receiver. I remember when I was in high school, there was one chacham, one smart aleck, that he took a peanut in a shell and he squeezed one end out so that the peanut would slip out, and he replaced it with a raisin. So now he had a raisin and he had a peanut. And that was his Mishloach Manot. He gave it to people. So there are two reasons why he wasn't Yotzei. One reason is because it's not roy l'mishalech or makabel. It could be mishalech. It was. In other words, he was a cheap person, so it was roy for him to give such a thing. But it wasn't roy l'makabel for most people. Meaning to say that if you're going to send your Rosh Hashiva, Mishloach Manot, you can't just send them, a can of Coca-Cola and a hamantash. And it's not roy l'makabel. It has to be roy l'makabel. It has to be roy l'notein. Another reason he wasn't Yotzei is because the halacha is that Manot is a minimum of a kazayit. Okay, and therefore it has to have a minimum size, and he wasn't Yosef because of that. Yeah. Now, there's a very interesting chakira on the din of Mishloach Manot. And I would like to label the chakira to be the shita of the Truman Hadeshen that held that the kiyum of Mishloach Manot is a kiyum specifically in the Seudah. In other words, the mitzvah, Mishloach Manot Yisraehu, is that your obligation to help your fellow man with his Seudah. It's a kiyum in the Seudah. Masha Enkein, the Bach understands it as a kiyum in Ish L'Re'ehu, of bringing Jews closer together. And that's the focus of it. And there are a number of nafkaminot lahalacha between these two approaches. As an example, what happens if your mother sends you Mishloach Manot FedEx or through the mail, but it doesn't arrive on Purim? You didn't get it on Purim, you got it 2 days after Purim. So, and she calls you and she says, or maybe the FedEx man calls you and says, oh, something happened, it's on your way, it'll be delivered tomorrow. So, if it's like the Bach Akiyum and Ish L'Re'ehu, you know it's coming. And if you know that it's coming, so then your mother was Makayim Mishloach Manot, and she doesn't have to give it a different Mishloach Manot. But if it's a din in the Seudah, helping out in the Seudah, so it didn't help you out in the Seudah, because you didn't receive it. Another nafkamina would be, if it's a din in the Seudah, maybe something that's milchik, if you know that your person that you're giving it to is not eating a milchik Seudah, he's one of the old-fashioned types, that, it's going to want real meat in the Seudah, so it could be that milchik items are not going to be augmenting his Seudah, and therefore a person should stay away from that, stay away from milchik items. A third nafkamina, what happens if you want to give this incredibly big basket to your Rebbe, or anybody, let's say, and you take this huge basket, and you put it down right before his door, but you're so scared, you decide just to ring the bell and run away. Okay, you put down this basket, you're going to run away, and what happens is you forget to put a card in. So he opens the door, no one's there anymore. He sees that someone sent him Mishloach Manot, but he doesn't know who he got it from. So if it's a din in the Seudah, so anonymous, Mishloach Manot works. Of course, you helped another Jew with his Seudah, and fine. But if it's Ish L'Re'ehu, so you didn't really achieve buttering up your Rebbe, or making your Rebbe feel any closer to you, that you care about him or whatever, and therefore you wouldn't be Mekayim the mitzvah. Another nafkamina. Let's say you go to Yerushalayim as planned on Friday to hang out with your friends, and your friend turns to you and gives you his only Mishloach Manot because he likes you, and he wants to give you Mishloach Manot, so he gives you Mishloach Manot. So if it's Ish L'Re'ehu, he was Mekayim the mitzvah. But if it's the din in the Seudah, you already finished your kiyum of Seudah the day before. It's not Purim for you, and therefore you wouldn't be Yotzei. Anyways, these are the halachot. Obviously, these are selected halachot. These are not all-encompassing halachot of Purim, but I think these are the most common ones, and everybody should have a Purim Sameach.